The first thing I think about whenever I think of NuBank is total addressable markets, or TAM for short. This is a critical metric that tries to measure the maximum amount of revenue that a company can go after if they were to take over the entire market space. It's important to know, however, that that only covers services that they're currently addressing. So for example, if Apple came out with the Mac, that would be one addressable market, but then if they add on an iPhone or an App Store or an iPad, those are all different markets that they can go after. But now let's look into NuBank's markets and see why investors like Warren Buffett are buying this stock. First, let me point you at a graphic that NuBank showed in their Q1 of 2022 presentation that showed off a total addressable market of $177 billion and that they only have captured 1% of this. And NuBank understands that there's a massive audience to go after, as you can see that there's more population between Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia than there is in the entire United States. Now, that doesn't mean that we can monetize every single person the same way that a bank could in America, because obviously there's a lot of factors that you have to point in. Like one being GDP total in the United States is over $23.5 trillion, where all of Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia also only add up to about $3.5 trillion. Then you also have to factor in that 50% of the adult population there is simply unbanked themselves and that they don't have any primary relationship with any bank in the country. But this fact is amazing, that almost 276 million people there, or roughly 70% of the total population, has never had a credit card. This is extremely limiting to some types of purchases, like on e-commerce, for example, where if you're going to be spending in Latin America, it is almost primarily through debit or credit card spending. But we'll touch up on the growth of that further into the video. Another interesting fact is that 185 million of these people are under the age of 30, which is the primary user of NuBank. These are the people that will be very willing to use an online-only bank account along with a credit card and all their other products that they might be offering. It's my favorite part about NuBank right now is it's very similar to SoFi. In the last couple of years, they went from a single product, NuBank credit card, to a multi-product, multi-country, full-service bank. But they are just getting started in Latin America, as Brazil started in 2014, but then in 2019 they actually braked into Mexico, and then in 2020 into Colombia. These are the top 3 most populous countries in Latin America, and that's why they were chosen. And as you can see, there is so much room to grow in Mexico and Colombia to try to get to those same levels of penetration that we've seen in Brazil, which in the early days of launching these two products has been absolutely amazing. So far so good for NuBank, but how do we get past these things like the unbanked records and the people without credit cards? One, you have to understand that COVID has changed everything in Latin America and that they are really going smartphone forward. In all of Latin America, we are seeing smartphone usage increase at a compounded annual growth rate of 15%. As of 2021, we saw a number of 467 million people actually have a smartphone, and the majority of those people are living within Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. Now, even whenever we look at middle class expansion in Latin America, things are looking up. From 2000 to 2014, we saw the expansion of middle class citizens go from 27% to 42%. That trend is expected to continue into 2029 up to 50%. Now, that doesn't sound like a massive leap, but whenever we're talking about hundreds of millions of people, that is a lot of new people that are considered, really great clients for NuBank to go after, which I'm assuming will also have smartphone usage and potentially even a higher impact on the GDP. And speaking of GDP, or gross domestic product, where Latin America is seeming to see some of the highest growth rates in the entire world, and yet there is a massive correlation between GDP growths and payment processing revenues. And it makes sense, right? If there's an increase in economic activity, then you're going to see people buying more goods and services. This would lead to more transactions, which means MasterCard and Visa and all these companies make more money, and especially banks as well that are actually being the issuing banks of these cards. That's where NuBank comes in. If we even look at their monthly average revenue per customer, you can see that it's mainly driven by the amount of transaction and purchase volume that they get, which is also related to interchange fees whenever people are actually tapping their card or purchasing online. The reason I bring up these factors is that the total addressable market in Latin America right now for NuBank is huge, but that's for 2022. If these trends continue and all these different ranges are also increasing, that's going to increase the total addressable market as years go on. The reason I love this so much is that even if a company stays stagnant and an environment where the total addressable markets are growing around them, your company will grow even if your factors are not growing elsewhere. But if, for example, it's actually the other way, where people are lined up out the door to look for these certain types of products, that people will come to your door instead of needing salespeople to go out and try to obtain customers like for credit cards at NuBank. And this is NuBank only servicing the top 3 countries in Latin America. If we were to just double that and include Argentina, Peru, and Chile, we would increase the total population that we're going after by 97 million people, which, by the way, are also seeing these growth metrics of unbanked people, people not using credit cards, but yet the increase in which people will be doing that because of increases in smartphones and all these things are also increasing in similar fashion. In every direction that I look, it seems like you're going to want to be a payment processor in Latin America. One of the biggest that caught my eye is in e-commerce. And whenever we look at those total addressable markets in 2021 for not only Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, but also Argentina, Peru, and Chile, these markets are not only huge, but it's the expected growth going forward that I'm really excited about. Between 2021 and 2025, we're expected to see compounded annual growth rates between 19 and 32%. And with Brazil being by far the largest total addressable market here and an expected growth rate of still 22%, the growth rate is unbelievable. A simple 22% compounded annual growth rate over just 4 years more than doubles the total addressable market for the e-commerce platforms in Brazil. Remember that these are payment volumes in countries where NuBank is the largest card issuer in the entire countries. NuBank will be the largest benefactor of all of these things, either going e-commerce or digital, or everything starting to go through more credit cards and online payments like NuPay. And very similar to SoFi, you also have to understand that this is only NuBank's total addressable market as of the products that they have today. This is not including anything that has to do with home loans, auto loans, or even other things such as tax solution softwares or even budgeting tools that could increase the activity rate for new customers. All of these markets, especially auto loans, that's growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 19%, is growing like crazy and could absolutely be a place where NuBank could expand into. And let's not forget all the beautiful things in between this, like the growing activity rates quarter after quarter in NuBank with an increasing customer base as well. This is leading us to an increased amount of revenue per user, but also the same level to actually cost to serve these users. That level of satisfaction per customer is going to lead a word-of-mouth revolution that is going to have all of their friends and family also sign up for NuBank going forward. That's where we're seeing most of this growth, right? Like in Brazil, where people are just telling their friends and the actual growth of users is getting insane. And let me remind you that there's certain factors in financial companies that are actual benefits rather than actual negatives, like inflation, for example. Whenever you're a payment processor, inflation is actually something that we're not very scared of because we get paid on the volume that we're actually transacting. So if inflation goes up by 10%, we are transacting 10% more, which just means that we get paid 10% more. It is the beautiful business model of companies like Visa and MasterCard that have benefited greatly due to these trends. Inflation rates in Latin America can be very scary, and it hurts our product like our debt products and credit products, but it does not hurt our other things like our actual transaction fees, which we really greatly benefit from. This is not the only fintech that I'm absolutely falling in love with. If you want to see some more, go check out this video right here. But aside from that, guys, have a great day. Bye for now.